Okay. GM Farcaster, welcome everybody. We are live with you. Back again with Adrian is back, my partner in crime. And she has been busy. Actually, I think I'll start with that news. She's been busy creating a little website for us. Or as she put it, I got drunk last night and I created a website. Which I thought was just phenomenal. I bought a domain. Yes. You know what? Many of us in this space, I don't know, there are a lot of people who buy domains just on a whim. I am one of them. I have lots of friends who do the same. This one is actually useful, gmfarcaster.com, and we do have a little website up and going. And we're planning some fun things. So there you go. All the links that you might need are at www.gmfarcaster.com. You're going to need the W's for now. So
I'll
she's
try to work
sober.
on
She
that
can
this
fix it
weekend
now
with the help of ChatGPT.
with the help of ChatGPT. We shall adjust that soon. But yes, we are up and going now. We have a little website. We're making this all kinds of fun and official. Um, are you taking turns in showing off hats? Yes, today is my turn. And I don't know if you guys can you see that? It's my
I
on-chain
see
hat.
white.
You have to look very
Oh,
carefully. That's why I did wear this one. It says on-chain. It's an on-chain hat. So I do have my on-chain hat, very subtle, and so we need one like this for we need like this one for GM. We need to say GM. So I'm working. We'll work on that. We'll get those done. But
I think our I think our first merch, I think the first GM Farcaster merch will be hats
definitely.
because your on-air talent likes to roll out of bed and
Sometimes, sometimes we just need to throw a hat. And well, we need two things. We need hats, and of course, we're gonna need some mugs. So these are the first two. The first two things we will have is hats and mugs. That I guarantee. Um, Coming as soon as COVID leaves my body. Um, so moving on to other news, we are permissionless. So it's official. Since I last saw you on Wednesday morning, we were getting ready to be permissionless, and now we are. So this is exciting. I loved this kind of Farcaster is now open to everyone post from Dan talking about 3 years ago. They started working on a new social network. We didn't know what shape it would take, but we knew it had to be sufficiently decentralized. I love that term. We believed that if users and developers felt they were in control, they would be willing to invest their time and energy in building out the network. Today, we're excited to announce that our social network, Farcaster, is 100% permissionless. Anyone with an internet connection and some Ether can sign up and use a network without depending on another person or organization. So that's exciting. And that kind of also describes permissionless because I saw some pushback on that term. And I think that's the key right there is that, you can sign up. Nobody has to approve you. You don't have to go through too much of a rigmarole to do it. And you don't even have to be on Warpcast. So that was really interesting. That was the most surprising thing to me was that this other site I've never even heard of, Flick, is it Flick? Flick had more signups.
Blink.
Flink,
Incredible.
Flink. Yeah, incredible. So that was crazy, and I was like, what is this? What is this thing? So that to me is very decentralized. The fact that the main client wasn't the one that got the most permissionless signups tells you that it is sufficiently decentralized, and that to me was kind of exciting. But also like we didn't see a whole bunch of change, and that was okay with me. I think we can go slow here. I think we can go slow. What were your thoughts on now we are permissionless?
Um, it certainly feels like this was the climax we've been waiting for and building up. I know, I don't know if you read, did you read Varun's sufficiently decentralized blog post?
I did not. I have to go back because I saw
Okay.
that link. I'm like, I'm gonna have to go read that.
And so when I first got into Farcaster and I'd heard about it and I was trying to figure out what it was and we even talked about how do you even get in. It was, DMing Dan your
Yeah.
code word, your
Yeah.
credentials. Um, I had to
Like,
do a
wait a
little
minute. Can we
sleuthing of
step?
like
Let me
what.
just double click on that for a second. You had to actually prove something to him? Like, you had to, like,
So
send him
it
something?
wasn't. I don't remember. Yeah, he posted, hey, if you want an invite, like share something you're building or DM me, and so I
Hmm.
sent him a DM and said why I was why I was interested in Web3 and some of the stuff I was working on.
So,
And he wrote
and
back,
I
"What's your
ended up with
email?"
some it was some kind of weird, it was like I just remember for a while there were passwords of the day. My password personally was nouns. It was just all I had to
Mm.
go in was say nouns. So I was at that point. But I remember there was a time where it was like, the password today is elephant. Just like random words. And I was like, what is happening? So that's really interesting. So you had to like, it's fascinating way to build the network up, really, is to figure out either those groups of folks that you know are a good fit, or to have people individually say, "Hey, I'm interested, and here's why."
Mhm.
Is really interesting, and I think it explains a lot about why the environment is what it is. That it is builders, it is entrepreneurs, it's founders, it's very that kind of centric. Feel. But yeah. So, anyways, continue on back to permissionless. I just
Well,
had to talk about that because I thought that was funny.
well, it's been such a joy and pleasure to be on this ride. I mean, it does feel in terms of the permissionless open. Look, there's a centralized team building at least, the protocol
The
still
infrastructure, yeah,
somewhat centralized. Um, but I certainly feel like I had an invitation to get on the train and go for the ride. So even that, so I read this blog post and understood kind of what it means. What is sufficiently decentralized? Um, and there were different milestones along the way. I mean, when we joined, we were on a test net.
yeah,
It
yeah.
right, and so over time, and then eventually to um, I always saw that, like the migration to a main net just for FIDs was going to be like a huge, but it still wasn't permissionless. So this just feels like the really big event, and it feels a little anticlimactic
A little bit.
in probably the best of ways. So I
Think it is.
congratulations.
I was thinking the same thing. Like it's a little anticlimactic, but at the same rate, I'm glad. I'm really glad. Like I'd still like it just to grow slowly, but grow. But just it doesn't have to grow by if we had all of a sudden had 200,000 people on here. Oh my God, like that would have been crazy. And I
Hmm.
think charging for to sign up for the storage is a really good move on both the business side of it, but also to avoid those spammers who have no intention of really bringing any value to the platform. So I do think that's good. I have to say, I have to just comment on the chat. So talking about our mugs and hats, s- uh, Arjan or Arjan, we're not sure how to pronounce your name, so let us know. So we can sit in the park with our hat and mug and enjoy the show. I think that is a fantastic idea. And Chris said being a fox was sufficient cred. So the foxes apparently at some point had enough had enough pull.
That
Um,
was part of my story in my hey, let me into Farcaster. I'm a philosophical fox,
there we
and
go.
and it was.
And I think, and I've seen, I think some of the best contributors to Farcaster have that same PFP. And I'd say, like Chris and Cameron and, who brought a lot too. So there's something about that community, and we've talked about that before, that definitely brings a lot here. Hopefully all the negativity from X and Twitter stays out. Yep, I agree with that. And yeah, the latter is a formal correct way. Okay. But I love both. Okay, good. Um, so yeah, so I think it's good that it wasn't this overwhelming. The gates are open and everyone came flooding in. That it's slow. I think that is fine. I think it's going to help to keep the culture where it has been. It's going to change, but it doesn't have to be dramatic. I do have to point out though the OG uh, NFT that was airdropped, and I'm showing it on the screen now. Happy Permissionless Day. Is it me, or does this OG look like they spend most of their time in the Farcast Her channel? And my comment back was, it looks like I believe that the prompt was Adrian standing at the gates of Farcaster, waiting to wish everyone a GM, but also ready to protect the vibes because she's got like the thing, the gun strapped around the leg. I was like, it's just perfect, absolutely
By
perfect.
the way, and shout out to Samantha. I asked on Farcaster a few months ago, I needed a new travel backpack. And everybody, I got so many good recommendations. And I went with Sam's recommendation, which was kind of the most rugged one.
Hmm,
And it kind
good.
of reminds me of the one in the picture.
That's hilarious. I'm telling you, I
Perfect.
swear it was inspired by you. I haven't gotten confirmation from Dan, but that looks like the prompt to me. It's so funny. So it totally looked like you were waiting to welcome everybody in, but also let them know. We protect the vibes. We protect
No
the vibes
comment.
here.
No
No
comment.
comment. I have to keep checking the chat here. Um, yep. So, oh, Mario was my official invite. Okay. Um, Did you see the cast from people who did not get one of the OGs? Yes, which I thought was really interesting. And by the way, if you didn't get an OG, I think it went out to all active Farcasters, I believe, accounts. But if you didn't get one, first double check your hidden folder because that's where mine was. So before you assume you didn't get it, double check in OpenSea. And yeah, I think it was anyone with an active badge, I believe. Was that correct? I think that was where who sent who ended up getting those. But I also saw that
Okay, my question for you.
there are offers being put on the OG badge. On I'm not selling. Sorry, mine is not for sale. Can't have it.
When when are we going to live in a post status world?
Ooh,
When?
which brings me to this one. Um, I would love to talk about this along those same lines. I think if Farcaster wants to become the social status game of Ethereum's who is who, it needs to get rid of the Farcaster aristocracy. Otherwise, what status game is it implementing? Not clear to me. Um, and I liked your response, interesting prompt, but I kind of don't agree with the premise that Farcaster wants to become the social status game of Ethereum's who is who. And I agree with that. Like I never thought of it like that. So I was kind of surprised by that post. Maybe it has become a little bit of that just because there are people like Vitalik and Balaji and Chris Dixon who do post on Farcaster and tend to actually engage more with people there rather than Twitter where they might post but they don't necessarily engage. But I don't see it that way. But what are your thoughts on that? I thought that was an interesting
Well,
comment.
I thought it was a fascinating, just the whole thread and the question and the premise. And when I joined Farcaster, I mean, I look at Tim. He is aristocracy. I don't know. He's all over. He's
Yeah.
connected. He's building. So I just found when I dug in a little bit, and I don't think Tim's on our stream or listening, but I'd love to talk to him. But when I dug in a little bit, I think what I'm reading between the lines is when you're upset, if you feel like you're not getting the outcome you want from a social media, it was looking to, well, there's always there's status, and
Yeah.
there's the Eugene Way. I don't know if you guys have read the status as a service blog.
No. No.
We can post that in our links too. It's a long
Yeah.
one, and he talked about the role
Drop me
status
that
plays in social
drop that link in our Discord and I'll add that to our show
media.
notes
Okay.
for sure because I have not read that and I'll also add the sufficiently decentralized. Um, so we are adding in the show notes of the recording, even if you don't collect the you don't have to collect the NFT to watch the recording. And I also put in the notes any links that we've talked about today, as well as anything, that adds value. So um So that's really interesting. Like, yeah, so step back, say more about that. So status as a service. What does that
Um,
mean?
I haven't read the blog in a long time, but I think it opened my eyes, right, just to in any network, there's status at play. And and who are and I can't speak intelligently about this morning.
We'll have to
Let's
dive into this more later. It's too early. We'll come
um
back to you on this. But I think
my
that's really
feeling is just
interesting.
but listen, I've listened to Dan on many read his writing and I've read his casts and I've listened to him on blogs talk about and I've read Varun's blog, you know. So if you listen to the people building Farcaster, I did not pick up when you think about, okay, well, you can read between the lines. Why are they building it? What are their
Mm,
goals? What are their end goals? And it didn't ever feel like this was a Ethereum game. And we talked about this a few weeks ago that Dan described who's on Farcaster and what
right.
it's people
Yes.
building
Building.
and developers, writers, artists who happen to be interested in Ethereum. So I think but there is a lot of early Farcaster people who are very core to Ethereum.
Yeah.
And maybe that's where it's kind of like how do you get popularity on Farcaster, right? I mean, that's ultimately what when you think about status, it is there, as soon as you have followers, as soon as you have an
Yeah.
asymmetrical follower and following count, uh, whether or not you're playing a game and trying to kind of game the status, people will see it as you have influence. If you have more followers, there's influence.
I'm not quite there yet. I still following more
Okay.
than I have followers. Not quite. I'm not
Well,
quite up there yet. I got to work on that. It's one of those things that I just haven't thought about it. Like I've never been one who's grown accounts specifically to grow them. Like it's not. I usually anything growth that I have, Twitter, Farcast, or anything, it has been organic, and I just haven't tried specifically. I just do my thing, and if people follow, great. It changes when we're doing something like this, it kind of does start to make me think like, "Ooh, we probably should, put some more focus on that." But it's just not something I've done. So that's interesting to me. Yeah, it's something to
in the
definitely think
chat,
about. Yeah, feels
in the
like
chat, WBNNS. I don't know if there's a way to pronounce that. Feels like there's a lot of weight to who the actual builders are. It's hard to build things.
hmm
It's hard to gain traction, but for the people who have it, seems that their voices carry far. In this sense, it feels more of a meritocracy rather than an aristocracy. W.
Ooh.
Benz, yes. Okay, thank
Yes,
you, W.
W.
Benz.
Benz. Okay, yes, and I definitely agree with that. I think it is a meritocracy, not an aristocracy, because aristocracy says to me, you got it for nothing. Like, you know what I mean? You were born into it. Like nobody's, you know, most of the people
And
who I see have the largest followings, it's because they've been put time into Farcaster. They spend time there, they cast, they add value, and that's why they have big followings. Like if you look at that most active list or anything, that's who I see there.
and Tim made the case. He started saying he thinks it's more who you're connected to in your graph.
Could be.
But for me, I mean, look, I knew nobody before I came in. I have a lot of followers now. I'm
Yeah,
not, and I'm
that's the
casting a lot,
meritocracy.
and
Yeah.
but I think what's hard about Tim, and someone else made this point yesterday, and I don't remember, but it was like creating for the art of creation and
Yep.
then creating for your economic interest of
Yes.
creation. And it's hard when they're one and the same.
Right.
And there's a weird thing at play there. So 2 more minutes to talk.
2 more minutes. I know. This
We
always
killed
goes so
Seth.
fast.
We killed
Oh,
this
Ivy
one.
was like, "Wait, wow, that was fast." I'm like, "Yes, it is. It goes very fast." It's purposefully fast. But I think that that topic is really interesting, and I think that, we need to dive more into that, but I'm going to leave you with this one. Thought exercise. Imagine you're dead tomorrow. Your work friends will be utterly devastated for a few weeks, then move on. Your family partner and maybe a few friends will be devastated and suffer your loss forever. Your internet friends might even not know what happened. What a lovely thought. um, but it's really interesting. And immediately I thought of, and I'm not going to call this person out, But I thought of somebody with a nouns who had disappeared for about a year. And they just went dark and we were like, what happened? And we talked about this person all the time, every other day, all the time. And then all of a sudden the fork stuff started happening and they reappeared. And it's been wonderful to have like their energy back, but it like they never were really forgotten. But at the same rate, yeah, we didn't know what happened. So you're right. Sometimes people just like disappear and they leave the internet and you're like, where'd you go? Where'd you go? But it doesn't mean we don't think about you. So we'd still think about you, Adrian, no matter what. We'd talk about you every day. So let us, keep us posted if something's
It
going on.
was it was just a thought experiment. I
Mhm.
didn't have just something to think about.
Just
You
something to
can
think
do with it
about.
what you will.
Okay. I think, it's funny because I have these conversations all the time the older I get, um, where I'll say things like that just randomly in a conversation. Like I was talking to the president of the university, as a matter of fact, last week. And I was saying the classes that I'm teaching, no one else can teach. I'm like, so we do have to think about what happens if I die tomorrow. I'm like, because we don't really have a plan for that. So that is something like I think about sometimes because of there's things I'm doing that nobody else can fill in for me. So, um, we have to roll with it. But it is, I think the older you get, you have these moments where these thoughts come in. Um, but I would miss you. I'd go hunt you down. I'd find you. I'd find out what happened. I've said that to a few other friends. Like, if you try to
Mhm,
leave,
mhm.
I'll get on a plane to
We'll find
Australia
you.
and I'll find you. Um, and with that, I don't know how this happens, but we're at the end of our time. And we had a few more things to talk about, but we're going to drop them in the show notes. And we'll be back on Monday. Any fun things planned for the weekend or just catching up on, you've been traveling a lot, so
Catching up, and just celebrating a permissionless weekend.
celebrating a permissionless weekend with the family and friends, and the internet friends we love. All right, everybody, have a great
Okay.
one. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Thanks to the chat. We love the chat. Love it when you guys jump in. We appreciate it, and we'll see you all later.